So welcome everyone. As you can see, this session is being recorded so we can all enjoy it later. And at the same time, welcome to everyone who's come punctually on time for this live session, which we're very excited to kick off. It's the first session of this EARA Roundtable series. And so we want to welcome you all. Thank you for taking the time to be here. And who are we? Well, EARA is the European Alliance for Regenerative Agriculture. And first of all, the people who have organized this session, we are the operating team. So many thanks to Virginia Tarditi and Simon Kramer, who have led the organization of this series, and with Natasha Schwarzkopf and myself, Anna Degon, supporting them. And to all the many farmers from EARA who've participated in designing and preparing these sessions. This is a joint effort of many people and answers the questions of many. So it's fantastic. The contributions already have been fantastic. And above all, we want to really thank all the EARA farmers and all the pioneering regenerative farmers who we gladly serve and who we walk this journey with. It really is an honor and a joy to serve farmers who are brave and who are courageous and doing things differently. So EARA is farmer-led, and only farmers have a vote within EARA. The rest of us are just supporting in technical roles. And it has been launched in November 2023. By farmers from 20 different countries, representing a huge variety of contexts, and everyone united with one vision. We are farming, they are farming in favor of life and of health and of economic well-being. We're farming, as some people say, as if our lives depended on it, because they really do. So it's taken many years of work by many people and a lot of effort to get to the stage of realizing and agreeing deeply on the need and the desire to unite in diversity, all of these pioneering threads of farming for life, in order to be able to debate all the topics and rally around those that really unite us. So EARA was launched in November 2023 after a lot of work before that. And with a lot of potential, there's a lot of internal organizational work being developed and joint outputs being launched, such as EARA's white paper and its very poignant CAP proposal, which we invite you to see on the website on eara.farm. You can see everything there. It's really interesting. We really recommend that. So EARA also aims to offer safe spaces of exchange and debate and co-creation with the wider community of people and organizations who are interested in farming and in food, in favoring life, wealth, and health of all beings. So this space is one of those initiatives, is an idea to create this space of exchange and debate and to really put the hot topics on the table. So thank you so much to all the speakers who have so graciously offering their time and their knowledge to the community by participating in these sessions. And what a lineup we have at every one of these sessions. Today's is a fantastic lineup indeed. And so I just want to tell you for a moment from the outset a little bit more about our international guests. Now, you will have seen on the poster, we have Joel Salatin, who is one of the great voices and experienced voices of nature-based agronomic R&D with clear economic, social, and environmental positive impacts. And he's going to help set the scene and encourage this conversation. Now, he is very sorry not to be able to join us live today. He's actually traveling between two planes to go and show 500 American homesteaders how to skin a chicken, because these are the kinds of essential skills that are required nowadays and that people really are looking for. So thank you, Joel, for, in spite of that, sending your support and sending us a message and some really interesting thoughts, which we're going to share with you in a moment. And he may come in live at some point, although it may be difficult, but he just didn't want to miss the opportunity to participate in this conversation and to support this alliance. So that's why we decided to pre-record his key message, and we will have him live some point in the future, some future session. So we will share some nuggets of that conversation with you today. Now, Andrew Liu, he unfortunately called in sick this morning, so he cannot make it for last-minute health reasons. So we wish you a speedy recovery, Andre, and we will no doubt host you very soon as a future EARA Roundtable panelist. Now, good news to counteract that, and a surprise for many of you perhaps, is that after a quick hunt today, many people wanting to assist, finally the wonderful Rick Clark from America has offered to fill in. And so he's with us here today. Thank you so much, Rick, for stepping in at the 11th hour. And we really look forward to your perspective on the topics at hand today, because as a 5th generation arable farmer in America, and also an economist who runs Farm Green, he has shifted his production from conventional to regenerative to work in favor of soil health, biodiversity, family health, as all the EARA farmers do. And so he's become a reference for many in his country and around the world. So it really is a pleasure to have him with us today. And we also have on our panel today 4 of EARA's founding members who will introduce themselves in a moment. Welcome Andre Antunes, Megan Sapp, Shaila Darmos from Greece, and Ben Taylor-Davis from Britain, Region Ben. So thanks to all, such a wealth of experience, contextual perspectives, so that we can discuss some of these real issues that are really hot topics around the world today. So with that, I'd like to pass over to my colleague Simon Kramer for you to please kick us off.
Thank you so much, Anna, for this exciting introduction and taking us on the journey of this little 1.5 hour deep dive into what we humbly, with a twinkling eye, like to call the true 4th agricultural revolution, regenerative agriculture. Very quickly, the agenda of tonight will have a contextual self-presentation of the speakers, of which Anna already introduced 2, and the others will also introduce themselves. Then we'll have a little curated discussion among the speakers. And then afterwards, as Anna also has shared, please put your questions to the speakers in the chat, which we will curate and then put to the genius minds here assembled tonight or in other parts of the world at other times. And then we'll have a nice closing with Anna. I'll give a very brief introduction to the setting of tonight by taking you through the full history of our agricultural revolutions, very speedy, hopefully. And then I'll give the word to the recording of Joel, who I think is one of the great living examples of this 4th agricultural revolution. So the first agricultural revolution, really, we were learning and learning and learning from nature, with nature, and were enabled through this learning to cooperate even deeper with nature, which led us, in some sense, to the domestication of plants and animals, which allowed us to cooperate even more among ourselves and innovate further towards our first great achievements like language and the written script. Then the second agricultural revolution was not solely so positive, mainly in Mesopotamia. We were kind of getting hooked on the economies of scale and efficiencies, which we were able to produce through those, but also through a kind of segregation of our land use. So we were planting for the first time big monocultures, and through Mesopotamia, through the history of antique Greek as well as Rome, we went from smallholder, very diverse, super cooperative, integrated farming and democratic self-organizational structures of the societies therein, to a further segregation of our land use and also of our societies and the simplification. Then we went, as you all know, in the so-called Dark Ages, but we came out with 2 scientific revolutions, kind of, after the Enlightenment, the physical revolution and the chemical. And after the First and Second World War, we took those innovations to do the so-called Third Green Revolution, which in a sense led to even further segregation of land use and to an even further simplification and segregation of our societies and our environment. As you all know, we learned to use fossil fuels, learned to heavily mechanize agriculture, to mineralize at the soil level, as well as use synthetic fertilizers and pesticides to really segregate to the utmost each plant into a kind of individual that is disconnected from the life in the soil, from the life of the plants around it. And now we come to the threshold and have, through the last kind of decades, developed, thanks to our farming pioneers, a fourth agricultural revolution. Some who are profiting from the third green agricultural revolution believe that this now is coming through artificial intelligence used for further improving the efficiencies of scale of the green revolution, of other kinds of technologies to really use, for example, CRISPR-Cas and new technologies in gene drives and so forth, to kind of go further down that rabbit hole. But we are somehow closing the circle of the great pioneers, of which Joel is one, in which we learn to outperform also in terms of efficiency and productivity by partnering again fully with nature. And I think Joel will tell us beautifully how through the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years on his family farm, this revolution unfolded.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joel Salatin from Polyface Farm in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley in the U.S. And I am just delighted, honored to be able to share a few words with you today to encourage the European Alliance for Regenerative Agriculture and all the different aspects of that whole effort. And congratulations to everyone who has put this together. My own story starts in 1961 when my parents bought this property in Virginia Shenandoah Valley. It was the most worn out farm in the entire region, a literal rock pile, gullied, infertile place. I could walk as a child, I could walk the whole farm and never set foot on a piece of vegetation. It was that barren. And we began looking at how do we redeem this land? How do we remediate? How do we change it? And so over the years, we began, we planted trees, we built ponds, we started composting, we rotated animals, we added a lot of animals, we began direct marketing, we did a lot of different things so that today, that very small fledgling footprint has expanded. We've added 2 additional properties that adjoin us, and we now manage numerous farms in the region and have created a 22 salary, multi-speciated, direct marketed branded farm that also includes a very robust, formal young farmer germination program through stewardship and apprenticeship. And this has yielded tremendous results. So what are those core principles that our family really latched onto, if you will, early on? The first one is animals move. It's a very simple phrase, animals move. They're not locked up in factory houses, confinement places, feedlots, and that sort of thing. Animals move. Well, if animals move, then we need to be able to get them water, shelter, and feed in lots of different places. So that necessitated a system of a water system that permaculture style. We built some 20 ponds, some of which are on high terrain ground. So we now have about 20 kilometers of buried water line that delivers gravity-fed water, no pumps, no electricity, across the farm network to give us pressurized, clean water from ponds across the network, no aquifers, no groundwater, no pumping out of the streams. We can also use this for irrigation as well, and we do with the New Zealand-style K-line irrigation system. Next, we realized that soil is built not with chemical fertilizer, but with on-site carbon. the sunbeams come down and are converted to biomass plant material, which is either decomposes on site or goes through an animal and comes out as manure and urine, which is a very rapid decomposition process. And so by viewing that, we bought a chipper. The chipper is our fertilizer factory. So we upgrade the woods, prune and take out diseased and crooked trees, upgrade the woodlot. That becomes the basis for composting, large-scale composting, which becomes the heart and soul of our fertilizer program. So we've gone from 1% organic matter in 1961 to 8% organic matter today. The techno-sophisticated solution that the industry is trying to cram down our throats, may I say, is actually a precision. The idea is that it's precision farming, but it's actually very imprecise. The precision comes from a top-down centralized mindset rather than a mindset that actually asks a locale or a field what is best for it. And so the observational in situ decisions that an individual farmer can make and adjust on the fly in real time, and not through headquarters of data, a data source that is manipulated and created by off-farm, disconnected experts, is the way we actually massage and caress our ecological umbilical into its greatest abundance and appreciation in real time on site. If a farmer has a factory chicken house that suddenly gets a disease and plugs in that disease to the database, the precision farming database, it will never tell that farmer, you probably ought to get these chickens outside on green grass with fresh air and sunshine, and the disease will go away. These artificial intelligence databases will only give advice based on a mechanical, non-biological, non-regenerative worldview. It will never give an answer based on that we are actually humble stewards of a magnificent natural system that is so complex, we've only named 10% of the soil microorganisms, and 90% of the soil microorganisms are still unnamed and unknown as to what to do. We need to quit walking around like a bunch of swashbuckling pirates, conquistadors, taking over things that we don't understand, and realize there's far more that we don't understand than we do, and let's walk into this as humble caretakers rather than aggressive tyrants.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. I think as humble caretakers, we can continue with Megan, who's also from the great tradition of this revolution of livestock raising in regenerative agriculture. Megan, may you introduce yourself and your own journey, maybe also where you are today and your extensive extra engagement for regenerative agriculture.
Thank you so much, Simon. Yes, everyone, please forgive my occasionally poor internet connection. I'm currently very honored to be at the Africa Center for Holistic Management in Zimbabwe, together with Alan Savory. As you may guess, I'm an accredited savory field professional. I teach holistic management, do advisory ecological monitoring throughout the north of Spain. My husband and I started managing holistically our small 3.5 hectare farm in the north of Spain 6 years ago. We came upon it by accident through my alma mater university in the US. I was taking a course online. It put together all of the pieces that I had come to understand over the previous 15 years of working in sustainable agriculture, sustainable development in sub-Saharan Africa. It just went boom. That's what I meant to say. So when we started putting it into practice at our place, we were just you know, we had 4 horses at the time, couple dogs. But what we found was that we were able to lower our management costs up for the horses by 80% the first year. And we thought, okay, there's something here. So started training up until now, where I'm one of the, I think, 3 or 4 field professionals that we have in the Iberian Peninsula. About 2 years ago, with some colleagues, got together to form the Hub del Norte, which is the accredited savory hub serving the Northern Iberian Peninsula and France. And it's through that we collaborate with many farmers, many organizations like the National Association for Regenerative Agriculture in Iberia, as well as many others across the regenerative agriculture space. I was a founding farmer of EARA from last year. I'm very proud to be amongst my other founding farmers on this call today. And I am also very, very blessed to represent my fellow EARA farmers in Brussels as their advocacy stewards. So I work at the policy level as well. I had a previous career working in renewable energy and agriculture policy in Brussels. I left that behind, and now I've come back, and we'll be working on behalf of my fellow farmers to ensure that we have a successful transition to regenerative agriculture at the agri-food ecosystem scale across Europe. So that's a bit where I come from and where we are today. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan. I would like then to introduce to you all, we heard 2 great pioneers of the livestock tradition. Let's go to Ben from the UK. I'm personally also a huge fan of his library. You can access it online. And Ben, how about you sharing your journey and also your insights? I think we all love to learn about your revolutions in arable farming.
Yeah, not sure I'm leading a revolution, really. I'm more of a follower than a leader. Look, yeah, we're trying to do all the right things on the farm over here in the UK. Where to start, really? Everything and anything. I think one of the most important things we soon realised was diversity is probably the most important part of farming. And the more diversity you put into a farm, the greater the results we were getting. And that includes from a nanoscale, so diversity into our soils with compost extracts and you know, concentrating on our soil biology on that nanoscale, right the way up to the macro scale of adding value to the products we're producing. I was starting to get rather quite sick and tired of producing commodities. Valueless commodities. The money in food, or the profit in food, is generally taken at the start of the process, in which case we buy as farmers brands. And if you buy a brand of anything, no matter how it's branded, it's profit. Now, whether that's somebody lending you money from a bank, or whether that's somebody sending you a pesticide or a seed, they're all branded. And that's a real problem, because a brand is an added value. You then buy all these brands to create a commodity of which you have no influence over the price of what you're selling. And funny enough, the commodity you then produce is sold by yourself for people to make brands. And they then add all the value onto your commodity to make brands for themselves and make money. So the only person left, sadly, in the whole picture of agriculture is the very farmer in the middle that sadly is buying brands, selling a commodity for people to make brands, and everyone's making money other than you. So one thing we decided to do was connect with the consumers, and rather than go through all the accreditations and things, we invite everybody to the farm to come and have a look and see how we produce food. And then we go out of our way to create anything from pasta, ancient grain pasta, interesting enough, 1 ton of ancient grain dried pasta that we sell is the same profit as 800 tons of wheat this year. Why are we chasing around trying to grow more and more valueless wheat when I can grow highly valuable pasta without all of the stress? You know, and put the story behind how you've grown the ancient wheats and all of that, and how we're using the water through a wind pump on a farm to regenerate the farm's water supply and not using mains water. And in actual fact, long term, we're actually going to use our water to split with our excess solar electricity production to create hydrogen to power all our farm machineries and farmhouse. And that all comes in this regenerative story. I think we often get a little bit too focused on the smaller parts of the farm and don't look at the whole farm business. And I'm trying to regenerate my whole farm business from the moment you enter the farm to the moment you leave. In other words, a bill is an enemy. You know, I want to produce my own electricity free. I want to produce my own power through hydrogen free. I want to produce my own water free as resource. I want to produce everything as I possibly can with no bills to face. Obviously, there's some legal bills that we have to pay, such as insurance and the likes. But as a general rule, we're trying to clear away all bills and therefore turn far more profit from what we're doing and going direct to consumer. I apologize for being a little bit late, but I've just shown yet another 25 people around our farm who are currently spending money in our farm shop. Who'd have thought I could be talking to you guys earning money?
Thank you so much, Ben. I mean, you took Joel's advice, I think, at heart, starting humble. You say you don't lead a revolution. In the first sentence, you take apart the concept of a commodity. No? We'll pass over to another great arable farmer who has made a huge journey. Rick, why don't you introduce yourself to the crowd?
Thank you. I'm absolutely honored to be here today on this panel. It's I don't think I'm worthy to be here, but I'm honored. Thank you so much. Rick Clark, 5th generation farmer, West Central Indiana, USA. Row crops. Most of our neighbors plant 2 crops, corn and soybeans, and they somehow think that's a rotation, but it's not. But we're up to nine crops now that we're raising: corn, soybeans, wheat, alfalfa, peas, milo, buckwheat, cover crops, sheep, and cattle. And we have been on a regenerative journey for about 18 years. Didn't even know it was called regenerative when we got started. We were just conservation minded, being good stewards of the land. Tried to take care of Mother Nature the best we could. The farm has been no-tilling for that same 18 years, and we've been cover cropping for about 15 years. So it was very clear to me early that the no-till was great, but it really needed to have the companion of cover crops with it. And when you join the two together, it's amazing what you can do to soil. We are not, or I am not, a grazing expert by any shape of the word. We do have some animals that we do rotationally graze, and I would love to do what Ben has done and get out of the commodity spinning wheel that everyone is on, and get more vertical integration and turn the farm into selling pound rather than by the bushel. That would be just incredible if we could pull something like that off. And when we were on this journey of being good stewards and being regenerative, I started to think about how we're doing the way we farm as being non-GMO, and we'd eliminated chemistry. And I thought, why don't we just become organic? We're already doing most of the organic process. So that's what we did. And then now we're on year 6 of that journey. The whole farm has now transitioned several thousand acres. And one day I was thinking, I was probably on a tractor or a combine somewhere, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I had an uncle that died of cancer. I had a cousin. I had a sister-in-law. I had a 23-year-old nephew who got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Diabetes is in the family. Why is all this happening? So that was another driver toward going organic, because there's several ways to look at nutrient density, and one of the ways that I look at nutrient density, but human health, one of the ways I look at human health is to remove all of those caustic herbicides and insecticides out of the equation, and we're now protecting our own bodies now, the farmer's body. So that really is what drove going organic with this operation, and trying to do this with no tillage and all cover crops. It's very difficult, very hard. It takes a mindset to be able to stay in this environment, and that's what we're going to do. So that's kind of everything we're doing here in a nutshell. Thank you again for having me on. I'm greatly honored.
Well, thank you, Rick, for joining us. And yeah, from Rick, we go to someone whose dad, I think, was the first organic farmer in Greece. So from a relatively new organic farmer to Shaila. And Shaila, tell us, please, how you are taking this pioneering spirit of your dad even further today.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, as Simon mentioned, my dad was one of the first organic farmers in Greece. And actually, after studying sociology in Germany, I mentioned this because it explains what happened later. I got kicked into the agricultural environment in my life, and I took over my dad's farm, which also my grandfather was managing. And even though at that time it was 35 years organic, I was walking in the farm, but I thought to myself, shouldn't the soil look so much better after 35 years of good organic farming? And this is when a journey in my thinking and my questioning started, thinking about forests and what is actually a forest, what is happening there, why are our farms different? Yeah, and eventually our farm transitioned by itself, funnily, to agroforestry. I just let everywhere fig and mulberries grow in the tree lines, managing them in a way to produce organic matter. But it's really that the system itself transitioned. So in that sense, we didn't have a lot of costs. And we also just discovered afterwards that there's a thing called agroforestry. So we just really took the journey from another side. But yeah, also landing in rural Greece, I saw all the challenges that exist there, also with a sociological perspective. And I just saw that I can do something about it. So yeah, one of the things that I address a lot with my team is to bring knowledge to farmers around regenerative farming, that this alternative exists, because in Greece, it's not really known, or it was not known. So that's one of our very big focuses, is that every farmer knows that there is this thing called regenerative farming, and that you can actually do it, and that it's profitable. Because yeah, if people know, they actually have a choice. So yeah, so we also started the initiative Regenerative Farming Greece. We create peer-to-peer learning networks all over Greece, because we realized there's only so few trainings that we can actually organize, and farmers learn so quick from each other. So yeah, that's something we continue also this year, and trying to bring a lot of educational content to farmers, because there exists already a lot out there. So we translated a lot of videos from French organizations or Portuguese, like Life in Syntropy and Ver de Terre, and we have over 40 videos of more than 1 hour translated and done voiceover into Greek to make it easier for farmers to hear it while they're on the tractor. And yeah, there's lots of work around that. Also, we do have a food business, and I mentioned it also because of what Ben Tyler Davis said, that it is actually very important to be able to add the value yourself and to actually have a voice also in the market. My father was smart enough to create that food business already, to be actually able to demand fair prices for our products, but also all the products that we buy from other organic farmers in the region. And I really have to say it's a game changer. We have collaborations with customers more than 20, 30 years where we have a stable price and they really do care. And it actually brings a lot of hope to many people to hear about such business relationships, that they actually do exist, even though they might sound very utopic. So yeah, just in a nutshell, a bit what we do. Yeah, back to Simon.
Thank you, Shaila. And I might also say that Vincent, a completely mind-blowing farming pioneer who founded Verde Terre, will also participate in our series later on. With that, I would hand over to Andre Atunes, who himself has gone through a super diverse journey. And with you, Andre, I would also put maybe a question after you introduce yourself and your journey. And I would also like to invite all of you speakers so far, if you have questions for the others, please also feel free to add them to your answers or discourses. So Andre, please, after introducing yourself and your journey, could you maybe say from your perspective why you think this bundle of innovations in agroforestry, syntropic agroforestry, in microbiology, in soils, in no-till technology, in holistic grazing, adaptive grazing understanding, comes to a leap of innovations that could be considered the next true agricultural revolution?
Thanks for the invitation. So I have a background in terms of studies as a biochemist in biochemistry and veterinary medicine. But about 12 years ago, I decided to, for some reason, intuitive maybe, to get into farming. So I started being a volunteer in a farm hand, tractor driver, then managing farms in the south of Portugal. And eventually setting up my own business of vegetable production. That's what got me into farming as such, in terms of holding my own business and understanding how easy or hard it is to live from agriculture. But what I do nowadays, since 3 years, I would say I design transition journeys into agricultural resilience for organizations, corporates, and other smaller private clients. And this was my best school, because I've been having very fortunate to be able to work and to have mentors during this journey. Some of the best agronomists that I could get in the world. I learned a lot by being close to these people, listening and understanding how they structure their thoughts about soil health and about the implementation of the regenerative practices. That's what I do nowadays. About your question. So yeah, I think there's something that seemingly very simple, but agronomical part of things, which is really have access and be able to implement sound agronomical practices. So some of these things are not innovations. Some of these things have been found many, many years ago, starting with William Albrecht and even before that. But these things are really not very difficult, but they are they are a bit complex to put in practice. And they have not been favored by the agricultural system that we have nowadays. They were kind of forgot. Some people, some of these mentors that I've been having access to were the people basically that came into modern age agriculture, to be able to articulate this through study, through experiments. Most of these people also are farmer consultants. So they are farmer agronomists. So they are farmers, but they are agronomists at the same time. Now, this is one of the most important things, is that we take advice from people that actually have the boots on the ground experience and not just the studies, both things together. Some of the innovations that we're talking about, AI, we're talking about precision agriculture, stuff like that, are tools that can be used, definitely. But if they are not based on sound agronomical principles, they will just be a precise way to do things wrongly, basically. So it's a good tool, but should be taken with care, not put aside also, as sometimes we are, some people go into that path. I think they should be used, but we really should go to how does soil work actually, and understand how soil work in the physical, chemical, biological perspectives. And this is just the agronomical part of things. I'm going to focus more on that. Yeah, I think this is what I've been finding more interesting, or with better results. I've seen results. I have seen results that were shared. I've seen results with my own eyes in projects that I'm part of, and they are very exuberant sometimes. They are very, very interesting results in financial resilience, agroecological resilience, well-being of the farmer too. So it works, but we need more people into this. I am a student. I'm learning every day. We need more people. Some of them are here with us. Rick Clark, Ben Taylor Davis are people that, more people should learn from them. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to learn more every day. There's a lot still to learn, and that's my journey.
Thank you so much, Andre. And yes, totally. I think as maybe Newton once said, we stand on the shoulder of giants, and we are rediscovering a lot, if that was in grazing, or Hans-Peter Rusch in soil microbiology, and of course, countless others in that context. Maybe I could ask Rick to give us another overview of why you choose and how you outperform your neighbors with this kind of true agricultural revolution, instead of opting, as I guess your neighbors are, on your huge farms for our European standards, for more efficiency, but kind of striving to just use less harmful inputs and maybe of another kind.
Yeah, we're trying to, like what Ben said, the main driver on this farm is diversity. You have to have diversity across the whole spectrum. I don't care what it is you're talking about. You need as much diversity as you possibly can get. And one of the things that I've been thinking about lately and starting to look at differently now is like, we used to take great pride, and we still do, in like creating a 16-way cocktail, for example, to go out and plant and adding all that diversity. That's true. But what we're doing now is we are taking a look at the number of families that we can get inside of that cocktail. So let's say we had 16 species in there, but somehow we only managed to cover 2 or 3 of the families. We're trying now to get cocktails that have at least 6 families in them, and we are already seeing changes take place just because of thinking about the diversity a little bit differently. It's very hard to step away from the farming is taught. That's what only know one way, and the education that we as a collective here now, it's on our shoulders, I think, to continue educate the teachers, so the teachers can then move down and educate the people below them, and then we can start to move the masses here. But once you start to pull away the inputs, and you realize that when you start doing this by following the 6 principles of soil health, and you start abiding by the rules of nature, you then quickly realize that we can move the whole farm, and we're going to take away all of the inputs. But I I have to say, though, that we have to take heed here. We have to be careful. We cannot jeopardize whatever your farm looks like. If it's a tree farm, a nut farm, a fruit farm, a row crop, whatever that case may be, we cannot get ourselves in a position where we're jeopardizing the livelihood of that farm. So take your time, take it easy, make sure that the things you start with are successful. I think that's also very important. I know that I saw the question in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and address the one that I saw about the pressure from the neighbors when you're doing this. I have pressure all the time. I mean, I get trashed online. I get a lot of negativity. You have to look beyond that negativity, and you have to understand that the people who are creating the change are the ones who are being talked about. So that is a good thing. That's a really good thing. You keep your head down and you stay on course with what you know is the right thing to do. And my last piece of advice here is we have to stop thinking about maximizing yield. We have to start thinking about maximizing ROI. Look at Ben's model. He is maximizing ROI. And that is what this is all about. I don't know of any other industry that cares about just producing products and not making any money. All other industry that I know of is trying to maximize their ROI. So the farming sector should be on the same mindset. And if you want to truly do that and achieve that, you need to implement the principles of soil health and start reducing, if not totally eliminating it.
Thank you, Rick. Very, very powerful. I think you mentioned a lot of other kind of paradigm points that we can hook up on. Megan, why don't you tell us a little bit of this paradigm shift, let's say, in grazing, and how the mindset shift of livestock raising facilitates this new collaboration with nature.
Thanks so much. I'm going to pick up a bit on where Rick left off, because from our perspective, we need to move away from yield per hectare, and we need to be moving to profit per hectare. This is going to happen by focusing on our management, understanding what resources we have that we can then be converting to meat or to crops or to whatever food and fiber products. And that's going to happen by us changing our mindset and starting to think about, what do I have and what can I make? And a lot of that, I think, is going to come from our creativity, but also an understanding that our real wealth is coming from photosynthesis. We are never going to make a lot of money buying someone else's inputs or buying someone else's technology. We may have fun with that fancy tractor. We may enjoy that fancy drone, but that's never going to create real generational wealth that we can then pass on to our children, to our communities. So that's really where we need to be focusing on. Now, if we think that 80% of the terrestrial Earth is what's appropriate for livestock, as in only 20% of our land base can really be used for arable farming, that's a giant chunk of land that is either not being used or is being used poorly. What we know is that over the centuries, the millennia, as we have dominated nature and tried to put nature under our control, and civilization has come out as a result of that, we have killed off species. We have killed off hundreds and thousands and millions of animals that used to be roaming the lands, right? So what we see now is we have desertification. We have land that is over-rested. We have this disconnect in our food system, but also this disconnect in our mindset, where we have forgotten that before we separated animals and crops, everything worked together. And by working together, we were able to create a natural abundance through that mixture of photosynthesis, of animals, of crops, and everything working together. By trying to simplify systems, by creating that disconnect and focusing on monocultures, being a monoculture of a crop, such as wheat or corn, or being a monoculture of an animal by having all of the, thousands of cows or tens of thousands of chickens or pigs in a single barn, we are then breaking our ecosystem. So what we are trying to do is demonstrate how, by breaking down these previous systems, yes, thank you, by breaking down these previous systems and bringing animals back into the land and using them as the wild herds used to be, we are able to begin healing those water cycles, those mineral cycles, bringing back biodiversity, and being able to create not just healthy ecosystem, but healthy communities, healthy businesses, that by being diverse with a number of products, by bringing together crops and animals together, we are able to then focus on, through our management decisions, focus on more profit per hectare in the end, instead of selling our souls and selling our land and selling our generational wealth onto big corporations that don't care about us in the end. So through holistic management, through what we try to do on our land, with our gardens, with our animals, with our different agricultural enterprises, we try to demonstrate, not demonstrate, but we try to show and learn together with our communities how we can be transitioning to these economically, socially, and environmentally healthy systems. I hope that answered a bit.
Thanks so very much, and thanks for picking up on Rick. I would pass it to Shaila. I mean, you said, yes, we dominate nature since the birth of Christ. We have halved the living plant biomass on this planet, which we can only regrow through photosynthesis to bring ourselves back in the harmony of the biogeochemical cycles of the earth and regrow biodiversity. How, Shaila, did you kind of put in value ever more photosynthesis for producing more with less underwater and heat stress?
Yes, thanks a lot, Simon. Yeah, because we are really very curious to see what actually thrives on our farm. And also we just love biodiversity and plants. We actually try out a lot of species in our farm. You have to imagine, on only 2 hectares in the main farm, we have more than 100 fruit trees and shrubs, also because it's an educational and experimental farm. But yeah, it's really amazing how many different layers and how many additional crops you can actually grow, where before or our neighbors are just growing 1 crop. So yeah, we interplanted with many different fruit trees and herbs and biomass producing support species, and also a lot of species we have in our farm that actually support very biodiverse insects and pollinators. And we currently also have a study, research going on in our farm that is actually monitoring all this pollinator diversity. And we already got a few first results, which look very, very promising. And also a lot of interactions that the researchers are still not really understanding how they affect. So yeah, there's still a lot that we have to explore in all those levels. But what we already see is that it adds a lot of resilience to our crops in terms of not being so susceptible to pests and diseases, where other farms are actually struggling a lot. So yeah, just that.
Thank you. And also water, no? I mean, tell us
Yes,
how hot it is and how much less water you use year by year.
Yeah, I think I tried to delete this from my memory, but we had like 3 months of temperatures above 37. And we could totally see how having higher layers and having such a dense canopy actually helped our main crops, which is medium layer, it's citrus, and how much it actually reduces the evapotranspiration of our farm. Usually we prune twice a year, in spring and in autumn, but this year we decided, no way, we're not gonna prune in spring. We're gonna leave those big mulberry and fig canopies to provide shade to the trees. And also in the soil already, we see it after 8 years of agroforestry that increasing the organic matter in the soil really reduces the stress of the heat on the soil and helps it to actually store water and provide to the plants whenever they need it. So yeah, in times of heat and drought, we really see that we are much more resilient and need less irrigation. And yeah, and I can actually say that you see the changes so much faster than I would have ever expected. So even in just a few years, especially if you grow the right support species that grows very fast in your context, you can actually have the benefits on your crop and your farm very, very quickly, like much quicker than I think that most people would expect it actually.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Ben, I think I will come back to you and maybe continue a little bit on this decommodification path. What's your takes on, let's say, the appropriation of the term regenerative agriculture, greenwashing, and I think also we are experiencing ever more some kind of farmer washing, where we take farmers to sit on the table and we are proud that we have put a farmer in the room, but then is the voice of the farmer actually the leading voice or influential, or it's just there to have a diversity?
Thanks for that. Oh, well, I don't even know how to start to answer that, really. I don't know where the movement comes from, really, if I'm absolutely... You've got to remember that farmers have been quashed and squeezed into places where we really don't want to be, and now we're not the masters, and therefore big business are incredibly cute and clever at manipulating every scenario. And I guess in a way we've lost, or did we ever have the ability to be proper business people, and therefore realize that we're being stitched up every which way but up. And really creating all the problems and being used as pawns in a huge game. And I think that's probably half the problem, that we don't even know we are being greenwashed or farmer washed or everything else. We think we're doing something quite useful, where in actual fact we're just, you know, you can imagine as a farmer leaves some of the meetings, the door closed, and they all burst into laughter because they just thought that you know, you've just poured your heart out, but actually it was just purely as a marketing gimmick, and that sort of thing. And that's a real struggle, really, to know whether people are being genuine or not. I think is one of the biggest things sat in boardrooms. Are these farms genuine or are they not? I just before I'm just going to pick up a very quick point you made when you asked Rick how he beats his neighbours, and one thing for me on regenerative ag I've learned is there's one thing better than beating and winning, and that's collaborating. And when you start collaborating with your neighbours and you start actually involving them in what you're doing and start actually offering advice, start actually saying, well, you do that and I'll do this and we can join, and therefore actually that collaboration is far more profitable than us doing it individually, then that's when you start winning. And I think that's a really important thing to put across in a regen forum, is that actually it's so much more important than looking at your neighbour as the competition, but looking at your neighbour as actually somebody that can enhance your business. So sorry, and that's been in my head since the moment you asked. So and I'm sure you didn't mean it in any way, but for me, I really do think you're missing a trick if you're trying to beat everybody. You know, people are there, and I think you know, and this forum especially, aren't we meant to be leading and showing and demonstrating what we're doing tonight? And therefore, in actual fact, it shouldn't all be beating. It should be, You know, as I said, I was a little bit late showing people around the farm. Come and have a look. I'll tell you absolutely everything I'm doing. You know, and I'd love you to do the same next door. You know, fantastic. Let's all get better together. So that's that. But going back to the greenwashing thing, I mean, I was dreading that question. I was really dreading, and I knew it'd be mine, because I simply don't know. I sit around an awful lot of big boardrooms for an awful lot of huge companies, and I do think there is a genuine desire to be better. I really do on some of the big companies I sit around with, and I do think they are genuinely up for it. But then when you tell them how to get there, the pound sign starts worrying them, and at the end of the day, they're generally answerable to their you know, their shareholders. And really and truthfully, perhaps we should be going to shareholders and putting pressure on them to actually pressurize the board to be more green or do something correctly rather than actually greenwash. I don't know if as even answered your question, to be honest.
I think much more important than answering my question is helping me to find the right words. So thank you for this wonderful corrective of mine, not about beating neighbors, but collaborating with neighbors, as it's about collaborating with the soil and the plants. Yes, I also think, of course, the problem is the maybe executive management, and surely many people inside the companies, if not all, genuinely want to get better on all three facets of sustainability. And then shareholders are driven by quarterly returns, and I think also a lot in terms of revenue. I would like to maybe invite in back Rick, who I think in the US this whole development and also the use of the term and so forth is a little bit further than in Europe. And maybe Rick, you can share with us your insights and how the movement is evolving, and how you think maybe also from insights from earlier experiences in other movements can develop so that it's leading to the greatest possible collaboration, and not to as a kind of arm for greenwashing.
Yeah, I mean, Ben is almost always spot on. Whenever anything comes out of Ben's mouth, you better pay attention. And I'm going to add to what Ben had to say. And Ben, you're exactly correct. We open up our farm to anybody and everybody that wants to come. I never, ever pressure anybody to do anything like we do it. I just say, hey, why don't you come watch, take a couple of our ideas and move to your farm. And honestly, the best things that can happen are when that phone rings out of the blue and it's a neighboring farmer who farms more than 40,000 acres, which I don't know how many hectares that is. A lot of hectares. I don't know, 20,000 hectares, 15,000 hectares maybe is the math there. They call and say, Rick, we need help on cover crops and no-till. Can you help us? You bet. That's what makes your day. You do not go out and pressure anyone, and you do like Ben said, you open up your farm and you let people see how transparent you are. And then when you show the world that you are transparent, then you carry a lot of weight with the words that you say. And the greenwashing aspect, I would like to say something on that as well. I think that from what little bit I see, I think we need to stop within the regenerative world, whatever that, I mean, I've got quotations on either end of that word. In the regenerative world, we need to stop putting each other down and stop saying things like, I'm doing it better than that guy's doing it. Why would you do it? I mean, we have to stop this negativity. We all need to come together and start heading toward the same goal. There is no one answer fits all here. We have to understand. I would imagine that a very hard question to answer, if we asked anybody here, would be to rank the principles of soil health, 1 to 6. That would be very hard to do. But context has to be close to the top, because where are you not only in the world, but where are you on your journey? Where are you financially? Where are you mentally? All of these things have to do with context. And we have to meet people where they are on the journey. So it's never a one answer fits all. It's never a one teaching method is the only way to do it. You have to learn from all of your peers and figure out how to make it better. It truly takes a village. And once we start to break down these barriers, then the almost always answer I get of when we've helped consult a farm to move toward regenerative, the almost always the answer is the same. I wish I would have done this 10 years ago. It's never been, we got to stop, we can't do this anymore. It's always the other way. Wish I would have done this 10 years ago. So you help, humans have a tendency to, if you push on me, what's the reaction going to be from me? I'm pushing back on you. So you do not want to approach this in that manner. You want to open up your farm, open up your mind, and allow the people to come in and let them decide for themselves that this is the thing to do.
Wonderful. I always feel a little bit ashamed taking all the word after you. I mean, should end every time. And we have, I think, a few questions in the chat. Some you already picked out and answered. Maybe we take some others, and then we also have some time for a nice closing, and don't close in a hurry. So I think one is kind of touching on what we have been discussing right now. Luis is asking for change to happen. The mentality has to shift from competing to collaborating. And this is difficult in a society based in scarcity. So maybe, Megan, also with your background in financial thinking and holistic financial management, what are kind of ways of thinking about this, so that collaboration, let's say, can also happen in boardrooms, as we identified this before, as where the collaboration ends, let's say, for now.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's interesting because we were just having this kind of discussion earlier this afternoon amongst the rest of us who are here at this moment, trying to understand collaboration on one hand, and this idea of many people who feel that you cannot do something unless you own it, right? So this idea of ownership versus management. And when you break away from that need to own something, so you own the land, or you own the animals, or you own the shop, right? And you start understanding collaboration in terms of the entire food supply web. No, it's like, I produce, you've got some, I've got some grass, you've got some animals, you've got some grain production, you've got a shop. How can we all be working together? That is where we're really going to start to break the systems that we've created that have then caused these problems, right? So how can we be engaging with other actors along the food supply web? How can we be bringing in brands and businesses? How can we be helping them to not greenwash, to not farmer wash, but and I think a lot of this comes from fear, right? Fear to change your supply chain or your supply web, fear to actually have to engage with producers rather than it just being easy and clean to tap into the commodities market. You know, how can we begin to have human relationships that is based on mutual respect and abundance for everyone instead of that competition mindset? And I think that's really where we're going to have to go back to go forward, to really be thinking at a community level, but not just community, global community. You know, it's not that we're talking about, you know, only supplying our neighbors or the community nearby. Global trade is important, but how can we balance that global trade and the need for exports, with the need for imports, with the need for local? If talking about diversity, biodiversity, we're also talking about human diversity, economic diversity. So we need the small farmers, we need medium-sized farmers, we need large farmers. Folks like Rick, folks like Rick's neighbors, we need them to be doing things in a way that is working with nature and with society. We need smaller folks like us. We need that mix. So how can we be creating these new collaboration systems in order for us to get what we all want, which is better quality of life, better environment, healthy future for our kids. So I don't have the answers to these, but I think what's important is that we're having these conversations so that we can begin to have those new ideas and have the courage to try out these new kinds of collaborations. And if they don't work, that's okay. We'll find other ways to do it. But the important thing is we keep going and keep going. So.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to come in on the same question? Or basically we are, yes, Shaila, please.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, I actually have to say that I have other experience. Actually, people like, once you set the frame of, okay, now let's collaborate, let's get away with this mindset of competition. Actually, many people are very glad about it. They're very glad that someone is putting this intention and this frame and creates somehow this safe space. And many people are actually taking this opportunity. We had this example in different networks that we initiated in Greece, and contradictory to the initial idea of the people that were like, oh, but people will not collaborate because actually they're competitors. But actually, no, they did collaborate because in the end, their interest for development and progress was higher. Yes, and I also see it in farmers. I mean, farmers in my region, by nature, they collaborate. Like since always, they used to collaborate because one farmer maybe doesn't have the tractor, but the other farmer has this other tractor part. So they do need to collaborate. I think it's something natural. Maybe it's more recent, this very competitive mindset, but I think it's also very much induced. It's not necessarily our nature. So I think approaching it with a bit of positivity and just try it out, people, you might be surprised. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think there are also, I think in the regenerative world, as Rick says, we can say regenerating farmers are creating milieux for collaboration in the soil and from there in all of society. And we can do so without being able to name all the microorganisms in the soil. But as we learned in the beginning, we only know 10%, which would lead me to the next question, which was a little bit on science and soil health. And then, of course, I think after everyone's reading about Ben's School of Art, Bachelor of Art in Soil, we need to know more about this. So Ben, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your view on how important you think is science for farmers and what different approaches you are taking to to advance without needing to know everything to the least defined parcel.
Yeah, okay, thanks for giving me the platform again. I've basically got to the stage with agriculture where this constant chase of science over the last 100 years has got us to where we're at. The need to know everything constantly the binary nature of you add a fungicide, you kill fungus, you add fertilizer, you poison a crop, but it actually grows, so that's a good thing. And we're messing around with Mother Nature, who is non-binary, with very binary questions continuously, and we've got ourselves into a total mess. And I've got to the stage also where I'm not even sure biology is a science, and that's going to upset a lot of people. I believe it's far more of an art. It mutates, it moves. It's like an artist's brush. It's like the poet that can come up with different scenarios, and you bombard biology with the same question, and it'll give you different answers over time. It's called mutation. It's a wonderful thing. And mutation, of course, is something that is beating chemistry and beating physics at all stages. So science for me is maths, chemistry, and physics, and I actually think biology is on the cusp of art, and it's about time as farmers. And a very simple question: how do I measure soil health? Do you know what? Take your socks and shoes off and walk across your field. Okay, you know what sort of factor your soil's in. Yeah, and that's a feeling. We need to use 5 senses far more. We need to understand that actually, do you know what? If you've got a gut feeling that you shouldn't be doing something in that field because it's too wet, too dry, or the wrong thing to be doing, you're probably right. You're 99% right. And we have to learn that we don't need to know every single microbe in the soil. But actually, if we watch and mimic nature to a point that in actual fact, that's good enough. The fact that we need 8 billion microbes in a teaspoon of soil. Well, I don't need to know all the microbes as long as I've got plenty of them and they're all very diverse. Then I think I'm doing a pretty good job. So essentially, I'm converting a huge barn. I'm just looking out of the window at the moment into a living. You can live in. It's going to sleep up 16 people. We're going to teach people how to cook, even and respect the whole animal. And teach people how to eat all of the poorer cuts of meat, as they're now called in Britain, which is a terrible thing. They're actually the most flavoursome. We're going to teach people that, like Dan Barber talks about the third plate, that we actually need to respect meat, and that needs to be a small proportion of the plate and a real treat if you're going to eat very high quality, regeneratively produced meat. And we're going to teach people that actually soil science is as much as a feeling, as that sort of thing. And I want to embrace poetry. I want to embrace the writings, some of the writings in literature of farming and things like that. We need to go back 3, 4, 5 centuries of what is amazing. You go back to the ancient Greeks, you go back to the Romans and what they were writing about agriculture. We really need to embrace literature back into ag. Cato wrote over 1,600 years ago, farmers should be sellers, not buyers. And 1,600 years on, we're sat here talking about how to improve agriculture. Well, he had it right then, and that was a while ago, So, I'm sorry I'm ranting, but it's for me, it's a living, moving. Of course, we're going to use microscopes and teach some science, but what we're not going to do is focus on the minutiae of science. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ben. Yes, I think we can learn from the Romans. The Gracchi brothers were already fighting for smallholder farmers, while Marcus Porticus was arguing for the Third Punic War. We have some resemblance to today. And Andre, why don't you give us a little bit another outlook, I think also as a finishing statement in terms of, yes, science, but I think that we came here today together to talk about something like a fourth agricultural revolution. All those innovations were made by farmers and then maybe legitimated by science. So maybe you bring us home with some of your experience and your belief in how we can innovate forward to deal with the crisis we face as a society.
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, first,
He got kicked out, it seems.
You probably pressed the wrong button at that point. So while we wait for him to come back, since we only have a few minutes, I'd like to, thank you, Ben for those comments on science, and Simon for bringing it back to farmers' innovations that then can be backed by science for those who need it. But many people don't actually need it. They need to smell it, touch it, cook it, and that's the proof. So Andre is back. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think farmer and farmers-led and based research should be more valued by academic circles. That's one of the things that was mentioned before. I think that would be very important. We don't need to go through all the academic kind of procedures to prove that something is right, like Ben was mentioning. Another thing that I think would be super important and happens in Europe is not so common is that farmers are encouraged themselves and other farmers and organize farmer guilds where they discuss within themselves, like especially the part of the profits and the agronomical principles they use, and they don't need necessarily to involve. We don't need to involve all the people, politicians and scientists. From farmer to farmer. That should be something more present, and they can even be circles that are closed just for farmers, and farmers will then decide either if they want or not to publish the results, but within themselves they will encourage other farmers. Farmers will, in my experience, will be easier follow when they see things being done that work in other farmers' neighbor fields. It's something that I'm starting to get into as a consultant, is to help other farmers that I identified in projects that they were kind of pioneer farmers. They were, for example, one of the best farmers in a group of farmers that were transitioned. Take that farmer and encourage him to start to teach other farmers in their region. Also, it's very important also to have this kind of locally adapted, farm, experimental farms, or farms even they're not experimental, but farms that are profitable farms but they are locally adapted. They work with the local language, the local ways, the local nature, local sunlight, and intelligence. Like I think it was Wendell Berry. That's one of his phrases, that we should base this new agricultural revolution in locally adapted economies, local nature, local sunlight, local intelligence and work. So this is very powerful. Like when you have someone that is already from that specific field of farming that is doing a good job, if they can be, the lighthouse for other farmers in the region, this is very powerful. And I think after that, if it becomes a grassroots movement through that, politicians will follow, even academics will follow. It's going to be very strong. It spreads like fire in my experience, even on a small scale. I am experiencing that in a region in Portugal. So yeah, that's my take on that.
I think that's a perfect closing from that farmer-led inoculations to the spreading fires of whole system regeneration. Anna, please.
Absolutely. It brings me back as well, a lot of the conversation today, to one of EARA's mottos, really, which is unity in diversity. So we are very different. It's totally contextual, but together we are stronger. And that's what we need to build. And that takes a lot of self-awareness and a lot of generosity. So it's, as Ben said and Rick said, it's a mind shift change. That is a complete change in paradigm from a power over vision to a power with vision, as Joanna Macy would say. So this is what we're actively cultivating in EARA, and many EARA farmers, like all EARA farmers are those kinds of people, and many regenerative farmers are those kinds of people. So we hope between us all to inoculate many more with that mindset, not just the farming community, but also in those corporate boardrooms where so many decisions are being made that affect us all. So we really want to invite you again to see the EARA CAP proposal, which is an absolutely fantastic document. I'm going to put the link again here in the chat so that you can all take a look. It's a 55-page document. Don't be scared. Especially recommend section 3, 10 pages, that explains that proposal that is put together by farmers and scientists and people who know about the playing board as we have it. We have what we have in Europe. We need to play the game on that board, but that game needs to be favoring farmers and favoring transition. So that proposal has been put together with that in mind. So I really invite you to have a look at that. And it really is, like Shaila says, a pleasure to read. I mean, you actually sit down, read and go, oh my God, this is amazing. So really encourage you to do that. So thank you to everyone who's participated. Thank you to all of the speakers, 6 amazing people, guests that we've had here today. And with Rick stepping in at the last minute, fantastic. What a rich, lovely conversation. And I hope you've all got lots of nuggets from this. So please share those nuggets with your teams, with your people. This year has been very much about working internally on the processes that govern EARA. And one of those is the entry of new members. So we are right now in the phase of accepting some first new members, farmer members, into EARA. And just to inform you, there will be 3 different types of memberships. One is farmer members who are professional, practicing farmers, who, such as the founding farmers, who will be the ones who have a right to vote in EARA. The farmers are the ones who have the right to vote and the right to participate in all of the working groups, steering committee, all of the different governance spaces. So farmer members. Secondly, associated members. These are people, individuals who are aligned with the mission and vision of EARA, who are not farmers themselves, but who can add and contribute to the community. So scientists, people who work in business, people who work in any other field, who feel connected and aligned with the EARA vision mission and who feel they can contribute from where they are, these are associated members. They will be receiving regular information about what's happening, and some of them, when relevant, will be invited to participate in different working groups to help build the knowledge and increase the capacity of EARA. And the third type of membership is partner organizations. So actual whole organizations that are aligned with the vision and mission of EARA will be partner organizations who will also be informed of what's going on. And so information exchange can happen between like-minded organizations from Europe and beyond, where we can come together around campaigns, around different lines of action, so that we can learn from each other, support each other, nurture each other as organizations. So those will be the 3 types of membership. And we will soon, hopefully, be able to open up to those requests to become members of one of those 3. I hope that was a clear and concise explanation of one way to contribute and participate with EARA. And just so you know as well, for clarity's sake and for transparency's sake, is that EARA has some funding from small mainly family-owned foundations who want to see things happen in the world in the favor of life and health. So there's a very strict ethical code that the founding farmers agreed upon on accepting funding. And so that very strict ethical code is an absolute guide, well, a complete guide into what yes and what no to accept. Because as you know, these days, money can often come at a cost, in exchange for something. So there's a very strict code in what money to accept, who from, and also those donations are not attached to any kind of decision-making power in EARA, nor participation in the agenda of EARA, which is really important as well. So those organizations that donate to EARA and that contribute to EARA are not setting the agenda, and they don't have a vote nor representation in any of the governing spaces of EARA, which is also really good. Obviously, that reduces very much the scope, but that's what EARA needs to be. It needs to be really healthy in that respect as well.